if you want something done, you go to Frank Luca Tuerto.
Is that how you say it, or are you just making that up?
I have it spelt out. That's how I read it. Luca Tuerto. It depends. I don't know if it's Hispanic.
Here's the issue. You're going into it thinking too much about it.
Yeah, you put it in my head because the past couple of weeks we've resorted to calling him Leguizamo, and I decided that's disrespectful. That man has shown us more respect than my very own mother does, and I figured the least I could do is get his last name right. So I wrote it out. I have it here in front of me in my Google Doc, Luca Tuerto. I feel comfortable saying it. I don't know if I'm right, but it feels good. I'm pretty good with phonics. I've always been good with English.
Frankie Limousine is a really nice guy, and I appreciate him listening to us every single week. I appreciate the follow on Instagram. It's more than I can say for Christian Harloff.
That's true. You realize he's never reacted to us mentioning that? I've been bringing that up for 2 years.
Well, yeah. They're still trying. Christian doesn't believe in doing an Instagram story. It's like the most crucial part of Instagram right now.
It is. Instagram stories are now announcements for profile pics. It's crazy. A lot of people are doing that now.
Is that true?
Yeah, a lot of people just post on their story, new pic, and then they'll scribble on it a little bit so you can't see it in its entirety. It forces you to go to their profile and see the latest thing. I've seen a lot of people do it, people that I follow, but specifically
what is this,
Sinead.
Instagram afterthoughts?
I could do it.
We could podcast about anything.
That's true. I could talk about how Christian doesn't know how to crop pictures.
Frankie.
Luca Tuerto.
That guy is such a great guy. He might work in a closet, but it's the best closet.
Yeah.
It's the best closet in Collider.
Yeah, definitely. It's better than that reptile room. And he's balling out right now in Singapore with Mark Fernandez. Yeah. And you know what? He deserves to.
Do you think he's learning everything there is to know about blockchain and crypto?
I hope so, because I'm going to need another lesson on it from somebody. I have no idea what's going on. And Gary Vee is not helping out at all.
If somebody just was like, you know what, guys, congratulations, it's your lucky day. Here's a check for some amount of money in crypto, I would be like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do with this.
How do you say that? Here's 1 million blocks, and you're supposed to go, oh boy, I've got 1 million blocks.
How much Starbucks can I actually get with this? That's the real question.
By the way, speaking of Starbucks, I've gone back the past 2 days. I've had a long break from it, but it's now hot in Kentucky. I had my iced coffee today. I felt pretty good. Why are you wearing jeans and a long sleeve shirt when it's summer now?
This is how I always dress.
In the summer, you wear long sleeve shirts?
Do you see?
You don't have to go over the layers.
Do you see that
there's no undershirt?
Underneath, yeah.
But it's still covering a lot of your skin. That
doesn't mean anything.
Man.
What's nice?
I didn't realize you were doing that.
The air wafts up underneath, and it creates the problem.
That's how boxers work, right?
Yeah. This outfit works in California, even on a hot day, even on an 80-something day.
It's a dry heat.
Exactly. Where you run into an issue, to tie this back into Collider, is the humidity. Mark Fernandez was complaining about the humidity in China or Singapore. Or whatever, and I get it. It's hot as fuck.
How much money have you spent at Starbucks this year?
So much that I swore off Starbucks for the rest of the year, and in order to win over the free drink that I could have gotten, I was like, I needed a little bit more to get my free drink. I was like, I'm going to re-up one more time, except I deleted it off my phone, the app. And when I signed back up, the default price that it re-upped on my fucking card was $25. Go to heck, Starbucks.
Here's the theme song nobody likes. from a fucking Denny's. It is Collider Afterthoughts, the show that examines the content and fandom at Collider. Jay Williams.
Doesn't look like a Denny's to me. It looks like a room in your mom's house, which is fine too.
I don't care. They're going to take it serious. They're going to talk about how, this is really great for Collider. We partnered up with Lucasfilm, where Denny's is part of the sponsorship of Solo.
Do they partner with
blah.
Lucasfilm, or do they partner with Denny's?
With Lucasfilm.
Is it?
Denny's
Okay.
is part of the marketing team behind
Denny's
Solo.
is part of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy is
Right.
the CEO of Denny's.
Right. So we haven't seen that episode of Jedi Council because it's going to come out on Friday, May the 4th.
Kevin Feige is the future CEO of Denny's, according to Roka.
We haven't seen Jedi Council yet, but they're going to have this serious spiel about it because Christian and Ellis can't make fun of it. Maybe Ellis will throw out a joke. I'm going to be the one that makes fun of that because on paper, that's hysterical. Like, forget all the fluff of Solo. Jedi Council, just saying to somebody Jedi Council is recording a live show at Denny's, hilarious. I love it so much.
Denny's is great. I love Denny's. Do you like Denny's?
I haven't been there in years because I don't have one
have
here.
liked Denny's. That's how you answer the
I mean,
question.
I have when I've gone there.
Do you like Denny's? I have.
Yeah. I might be more of an IHOP guy. But
IHOP is overrated.
neither of those things exist in my hometown, so I don't go to either one very often.
What about a Shoney's? You have a Shoney's in your hometown.
No, that's been gone.
Oh, that's a Frisch's.
15
Excuse
years.
me. Frisch's. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would definitely go see Jedi Council at Denny's. We'll talk about that. There's not really a whole lot more to say about that, but we'll bring that up later in the show. I guess the first thing I want to get to is you tweeted some stuff, Jay.
I did. You know what? When this show was presented to us, the opportunity to do this show, one of the things that I was given the task of was to be sort of in charge of doing some PR stuff. That was a double sort of thing. It was to help promote the show, but it was also to keep you under wraps and keep the leash on you, which is good.
What?
Anyways, and I just was like, hey, what do you guys think about Collider? What do you like? What do you not like? Who has had a good week? Who hasn't? Da-da-da-da. I got an overwhelming avalanche of just negative stuff. Not that there wasn't good stuff in there. There was good stuff. But
Christian posted a gif of a rhino pooping
yeah, he did.
in the thread.
He did. Got retweeted by Christian. Wanted to create some dialogue with the listeners of the show and the viewers of Collider.
Did he? He posted shit gifs.
What?
Did he create dialogue?
No, I'm saying that's what I wanted to do.
All
And
right.
I think he was on board with that. And it just reminded me that not everybody on the internet has it figured out, I think.
Maybe.
And that's not necessarily a commentary on the people that specifically responded. That's just more of a general thing.
Something I've learned, and I don't know if I've ever brought it up. I thought about it a while back. I actually thought about it when we first started this show. I think there's a community of people that see us as the bad guys.
That's fine.
Do you feel that?
Well, yeah.
I've gotten a lot of pushback in Schmoville
Well,
over
there-
the past
there was
like
a-
6 months.
There was a point where somebody blamed us for the live show going away. Remember that? Somebody was like, well, they stopped doing the live show and started doing Harloff and Ellis because of you guys. Really, man? Is that it? Okay. Let's start off. Let's kick this off with the thing that I was a little bit unaware of, and that is this hyperbole that, and what I'm about to speak to isn't specifically directed towards the individual that tweeted at me about this. I don't even necessarily know if this was his take, but he did make me aware of this idea that there was this backlash towards the spoiler videos from Avengers Infinity War. And I was sort of taken back by it because I honestly hadn't seen anything like that. I think sometimes we forget that even though we can be a part of a particular conversation, that's not necessarily the wider conversation that's happening, right? It's happening inside
Sure.
of a bubble. It's happening. It can be hyperbole. In fact, the first place I went to was actually the video itself to go through the YouTube comments. And this conversation about people taking issue with the spoiler video was just non-existent.
Is it spoiler talk, or is it like
on
the
spoiler
actual
talk.
video called spoiler
On
talk?
spoiler talk.
Okay.
I went to that video, saw no conversation of anybody having an issue with the video itself.
Right.
Then I asked him, what in particular are you referring to? And he pointed me in the direction of a tweet that Riley had tweeted, and I guess somebody else had tweeted as well. But and I had seen this one, and the tweet that Riley tweeted out was something along the lines of like my thoughts when people tell me I should be careful about putting out a spoiler review on Avengers Infinity War, and it was just like this meter of like I don't care at all. Anyways,
what does that even mean?
so I went into the thread of that tweet and people responding to him, and it was all these suggestions of like, well, I think you guys should have waited a little bit longer. That's one take.
I'm shaking my head, by the way.
Another one was somebody pointing out, like, I think some of the temperature there had to do with, and this is just my interpretation, but well, if you're putting that spoiler video out there, somebody could maybe click on it by mistake, or you're tempting people, or maybe throwing them into that same argument as the Forbes thing potentially, because the conversation around the Forbes thing was that a spoiler review was out there for trolls to get into. And then there was also somebody that had even suggested, well, if you are playing videos and you have automatic play on and it plays the next video, it goes into it. And I sort of understand that, but my take with this whole thing is, listen, I'm not even going to get into the business aspect of this, that it is important to release videos like this as soon as you probably should. Not before. The discussion of releasing a spoiler thing before the movie is in wide release, we had that last week. And Collider knows that. They would never do that. They would never put out a spoiler review before most of the people in the world have watched the movie. But once that movie is released, 100% it's fair game. If you do not have what it takes to put every measure in front of you to not be spoiled by this, I get it if somebody walks up to you and tells you in front of your face. You can't control that. But when you go on the internet, if you do not treat it like it's a fucking minefield, then that's on you. It's not on them to worry about how everybody in the world is experiencing their channel.
Okay. All right. So whenever Collider makes videos, a video in general just has more lines of defense than, say, that Forbes article. The issue with the Forbes article is it's a movie review that shouldn't have spoilers in it to begin with, blatant spoilers that are just revealed inside of it. It was also released way before it was supposed to. That's the problem. And I think...
And I would even debate some of that myself.
What do you mean?
I would debate that whole conversation about whether they should or shouldn't do certain things from, a devil's advocate perspective, saying that their Forbes is as much outside of this bubble as anybody else.
Okay. Well,
they don't owe it to anybody to do anything. Honestly.
I think someone like Frosty, the idea of him coming from film journalism, I think Collider.com, this is where it all started.
Absolutely.
He set the precedent for spoiler ethics, maybe just ethics in general, professionalism in the industry. And that, I think, was brilliantly carried over into the .com sides of things. Now, right. I do think that the YouTube personalities are able to have more personalities. Mm-hmm. We get to see them rail on things, whereas we don't really see Frosty rail on things inside of a .com article, if you will. Someone like a John Campea would rail against things. Schnepp rails on DC all the time. In that sense, there's more personality, but when it came to setting a precedent for the ethics, how Collider Video would operate in this space, I don't think Collider Video will ever go against those ethics that it put in place. And off the top of my head, I cannot think of an example of that. So a video has lines of defense. There are boundaries set into play so that people will not be spoiled. The first line of defense is you have to hit play on it.
Right, of course.
2, more than likely, it's in the title of the video, it's in the thumbnail of the video, and it's in the description of the video.
There's probably even a call to action at the front of the video.
At the beginning of the video, or the beginning, like, for example, they introduced this new spoiler segment of Movie Talk. There's always a point where they preface the material with spoilers galore. Now, I will go against something you said a little bit, because I don't think that people should act like the internet is a minefield. Obviously, it's probably to your benefit if you do, but I don't think you should do that. And that's
if it's something you care that much about, you should be weary.
Like, I'm not going to argue if you decide to get offline.
Exactly.
But I don't think my problem is with the beat, like, why you should do that, which is people just shouldn't post shit.
But you can't control that.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
I know. So I just think it's a little bit different in that sense. But I don't. They put them out Thursday night, so people are saying they should put it out like over Saturday and Sunday. That goes back to your point of optimizing
the business
viewership,
side.
and on YouTube and the algorithm and all that stuff. It's like, I just don't. Why do people care? Did any of those people mention, those people that had a problem with it? Did any of them mention that the movie was spoiled for them because of that reason?
So let's circle back around, because the overwhelming point that I want to make here as well, I want to address these individuals that felt aggrieved by this, but I also want to point out that all of this is hyperbole. This is not an issue that was like this overwhelming, case that people had against Collider. When we talk about stuff like this, and I was checking this whole thing when there was a lot of the doom and gloom with Collider, because you've heard people talk about this before. The negative voices ring the loudest, and it's true. It's so true. If you go, and I remember somebody telling me, like, well, look at the thumbs down on the video. Thumbs down on video in ratio to the thumbs up is like less than 1% sometimes. And the reason I'm bringing this up is just because that conversation was not had en masse. This wasn't a Captain Learning type of thing. That was something that Collider took notice of and should have taken notice of. The collective spoke. This was not. This was something that I only saw particularly in a bubble, on a thread, on a tweet, on Twitter.
Right. What else you got from your tweets?
Well, people, I don't know if it was because Christian retweeted it specifically, but people kind of going in on his specific takes on things. And my whole thing with that was like, that's not really what that wasn't really what I was looking for. I mean, we've talked about this before. I disagree with people with content that I take in all the time. I've never felt so aggrieved to ever voice it, unless it was somebody like was just completely off base with like a sexist or a racist comment. Like, yeah, I know that Christian has his issues with Kathleen Kennedy. I'm aware of that. I know he brings it up a lot. That's fine.
I've made jokes that he's recruiting people to his army.
It's just a thing. It's just a thing, man. Like, I'm not trying to downplay like people's frustration. If you have a frustration with that, I get it. But
that's just one of those things.
Is it the thing that sticks out to you from the week of Collider? Like,
right.
I don't know.
That's just one of those things that, like, I make fun of the repetition and redundancy of.
That's where I want to take this conversation.
Well, what I'm speaking to is we've had redundancy issues, but I'm mainly referring to I always make fun of the movie YouTube space having to say all of the time, well, up until this point, Marvel has a villain problem. I always make that joke as if we never have heard that before. And Christian's take on Lucasfilm, I actually appreciate it every time because I think it's valid. I think if people wanted to make fun of it, it's just because of the repetition of it. But again, there's nothing to do about it.
The only thing I will say about that is that I think there's a few reasons why that repetition exists. And this is something that we're very conscientious of, is how much we give echoes of takes across certain things and certain platforms. Because, yeah, to the audience, I get it. It can be a little bit frustrating or annoying, or you can be put off by it. However, there are always new listeners, right? That's like the most bare minimum. But not just Christian, Jedi Council has a rotating guest seat.
Right.
He could just as easily be bringing something up to inform the discussion for the guest. The guest might not listen to every single episode. This is something that I hear. Joe Rogan has told the same stories for so many episodes, for so many years on his podcast, but it's because he's providing context to his guests.
Do you think that there's a little bit of, we don't have to talk about Christians specifically, but do you think anybody has, I'm going to use the word agenda, but that has a negative connotation. I don't mean it in a negative way. Do you think they do some of that on purpose because they might have some pull? I mean, somewhere?
I don't know about pull, but like, you mean in the way that like I think, on an MSNBC, somebody might try to push a particular stock because they're invested in that stock?
Maybe not that big of an example,
right.
But I mean, like, I think Schnepp knows some high profile people that may or may not watch his show. So if he makes a certain point enough, maybe something will actually be changed. Like, I'm not saying it'll change. I'm saying they might be doing it to see if it'll change.
I'll give a specific
abuse their power, if you will.
I'll give a specific example, and it's not abusing power, I don't think, and it's not because of like ulterior motives. But do you remember that whole discussion about the Rotten Tomatoes show?
Yeah.
Well, Mark was friends with those individuals, and he made that point. He brought it up very much so, and Christian even took some issue with it, which made for an interesting conversation because
it's a great episode. Mark
was, I'm not going to say he was defensive about his friends being on there, but he was trying to make his case, maybe play devil's advocate a little bit more.
What was his stance? He was just kind of like, they can do what they want? Is that essentially what the gist
I think
of it
so.
was?
And listen, that stuff like that's going to happen. That's an honest human reaction. I've talked about this before when people have asked us to hold Collider's feet to the fire even more than we already do. It's tough because we do like these people. I'm not going to sit here and say like that I don't enjoy these individuals or they've been nice to us. Like, if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not just going to completely shit on somebody or have it out for somebody.
And I don't think whenever we have done that, I think we've made light of it. Like, absolutely. Just making fun of people, but at the same time, it's like...
Well, there was a point in time where people... Like, we went through a period where people were saying that we were shit-talking certain individuals, and it's like, do you honestly think that's what we're doing?
It's like... So we talked a lot about podcast... We'll probably talk a little bit about it again, but we were talking about the titling of the podcast network, and we had an engagement with Christian about it, and we were going back and forth.
One of the weirdest afternoons I'd ever had.
Yeah. And he just,
I was convinced that he was home alone during that whole thing.
He had to be.
Because he was so responsive.
It was early on a Saturday. It's like, what are you doing? That's so weird.
I mean, I welcome it. It's fine, but yeah.
Yeah. But like, he didn't agree with what I said, and I was like, okay.
Right.
and that's just where we are, and that's just how it works sometimes. But it's a fun, interesting relationship.
Credit to him for engaging in it and trying to understand more. And to give more context, on last week's episode, we were critical of certain technical aspects of how the podcast network was working, and Christian just wanted some more insight into that, what we meant, some examples, and he just didn't agree with certain things, and that's completely fine.
I do have some new stuff on the podcast network. We'll get to that. Did you want to cover any of the other tweets? They mentioned the graphics. We sort of talked about the graphics on Movie Talk.
Yeah, well, there was an update to the graphics this week. I've seen more of them creating their own original graphics. You actually pointed it out to me first, and I saw it even more.
Oh, I was talking about the animated graphics inside Movie Talk.
Right,
You're talking about like the new thumbnails,
that's right.
The designs.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Right.
There was somebody... I feel like there was another one that was later on in that tweet stream that I'm forgetting.
I have some technology that was just dropped off by FedEx, so I'm going to bring it in out of the heat if you can just keep talking about a tweet for a second.
Well, I mean, this whole thing, we want this show to be more interactive. We do want to hear from you guys. I guess and it's fine, this was the first time I'd ever really done this, so you guys didn't have any... I don't know. You guys didn't know specifically what you were supposed to say, and you can say whatever you want, obviously. But I guess I'm looking for more broad things, not just like these focused in specific things. Like, I don't like the way John Schnepp's hair looked on Thursday.
Who said that? Fuck that guy.
Nobody said that. But,
okay.
What was the last thing? There was like
all of the explained vids, and this is the one that I got involved in.
Okay, well, there was that one, but there was another one too.
Less graphics, the 3-person panels.
That one, yeah. So this person, I feel like, I don't know if they listen to the show regularly, but I was only going to go in the opposite direction of that. They were taking issue with the 3-person panel, so much so that they said that they had just downgraded to watching the Schmodown and Heroes every day, which is a little bit strange. But, I mean, we've gotten 3-person panel for a little bit now. Just give your updated opinion on it. Do you feel so aggrieved by it that you're only going to watch things with more than 3 people now?
Well, no.
Okay.
My updated opinion on it, and I tweeted this out early in the week because they didn't really stick with it this week. They kind of did for half of it, but they're doing Christian and Schnepp on Monday, Wednesdays, Tuesday, Thursday is Perry and Roca, and then Friday they had like a Danny Fernandez on last week.
That's semi-official too. Christian made us aware of that. Didn't realize that was like an actual schedule.
And I think Ellis said that there's going to be someone from Cobra Kai on tomorrow.
Interesting.
So they are going to bring in more guests on Friday, it seems.
So and here's how I took it. But this week we actually saw an absence of Christian.
I was still on my updated opinion.
I know. Well, hang on. I just want to give this take real quick. We saw an absence of Christian primarily. He was on the Monday, I believe, episode of Movie Talk. No carpool from him this week.
No anything.
What's that?
No anything.
Yeah, and the way I take it, even though he is scheduled to do that via his carpool, we know that sometimes he's a little bit late. So anytime we don't see him on days that he's quote-unquote supposed to be there, that's sort of how I interpret it. Like, oh, he got stuck in traffic or something.
I mentioned it before, but Perry and Roca, I mean, Schnepp and Christian are great. We've talked a lot about Schnepp and Christian. That's why I'm not bringing it up here. That duo is awesome. Perry and Roca, though, Christian and Schnepp play off each other in a humorous way.
Yes.
Perry and Roca.
Like an off-the-rails way,
Perry
which I
and
enjoy.
Roca, they're not doing it on purpose. They just disagree with each other a lot, and Perry is on top of it because she tries to catch Roca and
Slipping.
in his contradictions and shit like that, and it's just super funny. And they will just rail on each other. They'll point out Roca like in Transformers, and
Do you think
it's insanely entertaining?
Do you think we've often discussed how Perry's one of my favorite people on Collider for this sole fact that she's so incredibly professional. Like to me, she represents like the suit and tie, very well rehearsed, very well thought out personality on Collider. Like the take that she's giving has been absolutely sanded down, massaged out as best as it can be, as foolproof as it possibly can be. I think she's loosening up a little bit more.
Yeah,
I would agree with the obviously incorporating Mark as the host, and I think you throw the wild card of a John Schnepp or of a John Roca. But I also think, to support my 3-person at the table claim, I think the 3-person invites a more loose conversation
because they're talking to each other more.
Absolutely,
as opposed to talking back to Ellis.
Yeah, necessarily.
There's a lot more Roca and Perry going back and forth that is necessarily allowed with the 4-person table. I want to use this last tweet to transition into the Infinity War coverage in general. Last week you posed the question to me, when does Collider capitalize most on prime movie coverage? Is it before, during, or after? And I said it certainly wasn't before.
Yeah.
So he was sort of asking, like, his specific question, I'm not really sure what it even meant. He said, who were they marketing these excessive Infinity War videos to? I just kind of think that's self-explanatory. I don't really know what. I just didn't understand that. But
it's a grab for new viewers, new subscribers.
Yes. And for one, it's Infinity War. Biggest box. That's obvious. The market is the market is the market. The numbers speak for themselves. So if you're wondering if
we're
you're
talking
tired,
about everyone.
if you're
That's the
tired,
market.
yeah, if you're tired of the Infinity War coverage and you're wondering why they're doing it, the proof is in the numbers. So when you look at the end of last week's subscriber count, really,
Yeah, it's LaCroix time. It's refreshing. It's a hot day today. It's a hot take.
actually, if you look at the week prior to last Thursday, their subscribers daily were around 300. And then you see a massive jump. On premiere night, it was 600. And then the next day, 1,054. And it was consistently over 1,000 up until today. So for a full week, they had 1,000 brand new subscribers today, which is massive because we are on the road to 500,000 subscribers. And when you do
Sight and Sound,
yeah, and when you do, I'm going to talk about Sight and Sound later when we talk about TV coverage, that's for sure. But when you get like 5 days in a row of over 1,000 subscribers, that is a huge deal. And it's entirely because of Infinity War coverage. These videos have been doing big business. So much so that even a Collider News video, not Avengers plot holes, not spoiler reviews or anything like that. A Collider News talking about Valkyrie's fate in Infinity War in 2 days got over 100,000 views.
Yeah.
That's why Infinity War is massive. It's obvious, self-explanatory why all of these people are doing this. Because you may have an issue with it, but a majority of subscribers and hopefully a majority of newcomers are prescribing to this kind of content.
They're prescribing. Subscribing.
No, they're prescribed to this kind of content. Like, they're on board with it. No, I meant to say prescribed.
Okay. So what I want to talk about, my perspective here is that we need to separate now with this conversation. We need to separate the audience between new subscribers, potentially new subscribers, and existing subscribers. So if you are an existing subscriber and you have had the perspective of, man, I was super on board, super into this Infinity War coverage. Now I'm a little bit burnt out on it. There's a lot of it. You are 100% vindicated in that regard, and you are allowed, obviously, to have that opinion. I get it. Even myself, at a certain point, I was like, okay, I'm done with Infinity War coverage. However, what that is not a commentary to is I'm done with Infinity War coverage, so Collider should also be done with it.
Yes.
You have to understand, and we've made this point before that, and I don't want to necessarily draw this line in the sand, but we've talked about that maybe we are more understanding of why all this works or how all this works because we are also content creators. But what I want to do for our audience is, if this is the first time you're ever hearing people talk about the business side of running a channel like this or a brand like this, let's wrap our heads around this too. Like maybe you're hearing this for the first time and thinking like, yeah, okay, I do understand why the Collider needs to do this. And even though I might be over it, it's fine. It makes total sense why they're doing this.
I'm glad you made that distinction because you and I had a pretty lengthy conversation about excess of Collider content.
Yeah.
And the specific example was, why do so many shows come out on Fridays?
Right.
Why can't that be a little bit more widespread?
Yes, we've had this take.
And the difference is, because I don't want people to think we're contradicting ourselves.
Yeah.
The difference is, again, the who and the why. Like, yes, we might have the opinion of this is a lot of content for me, but to ask why they're doing it, we aren't doing that because
it's a method to the madness. Like,
yeah, it has to be part of it.
Yeah, so if my commentary is, man, they put out a lot of stuff on a Friday, it's not, my issue isn't the amount of content. My issue is, are they doing it the most efficient way possible?
Right.
Are they executing it with a plan or this or that?
And like I said, it's just it's the numbers game.
Right.
I mean, if you don't have numbers, you don't have shit. And so you and I, from week to week, we'll talk about the things that we'd like to see Collider do differently. The things Collider should add, like how they should approach Collider games, if you will. Upcoming TV talk, which we're going to talk about. TV coverage, I should say. I'm not talking about specifically TV talk.
Maku?
All of that new stuff that you and I want to talk about, that you and I want to see at Collider, it doesn't mean shit if they don't get this right first.
It's removing the entitlement. Yeah, for sure.
Well, no, because
not that it comes specifically from that place.
I'm saying like all of the things we want Collider to do that's new, they can't do any of it if they
absolutely.
don't have the numbers.
Absolutely.
If they don't have new subscribers, if they don't have new eyeballs on top of this. So our words, they don't mean shit if they don't have this.
Right. So the reason we communicate about stuff like this, the reason why it is important and why people should care is that if you want the channel to grow and all of this stuff, you want new types of content to engage with, we need things to be successful like this. Now, what I will throw into it, and I'll wrap the conversation back around to a few other things too, is that my criticism with a lot of this and how it's been delivered and what I would have liked to have seen for the community is that, yes, it makes 100% sense to give all of this Infinity War content, especially if you're reacting to the increase in subscribers and viewers. However, what would be nice is to also service the people who are potentially burnt out by giving content that isn't specifically topical to that. Now, that doesn't exist right now. The only thing that operates outside of the news cycle on Collider right now that is a regular show is Christians One-on-One.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a few other things. Like there's Caption This.
Couple of things here and there. But
right. But that's really all they have to offer.
And it's only going to get worse because we're just starting the summer movie season.
Exactly.
We're seeing how big Deadpool 2 is going to be. We're seeing how big Solo is going to be. It's
right.
projected to have a bigger opening than Rogue One, which is hilarious,
well,
by the way.
we talked about it was either last week or a couple weeks ago about how important this particular time is for them. And not only are we coming, obviously this is the biggest time because of Infinity War, but we're going to come out of this cycle and go right into Solo.
Right.
And then we'll start it all over again. Then obviously Deadpool. But again, it would be nice to service the fans that might be over one particular content and provide them something else. What I will say about that though, and I'll probably address this again here soon, is that Collider right now, in my opinion, and somebody could correct me, but it seems to be the case, I don't think they have the infrastructure to provide that at this certain point in time.
Right.
My whole take this week is that Collider seems very stretched, being brand new with Mark Fernandez purchasing the company, being more independent, being more punk rock, and I get it 100%, and I'm giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt with that. But I want to see it. I want to see the additional content, and I hope for it in the future, especially at times like this. But I get why they're not doing it right now. Are they going to Comic-Con?
I don't know. You asked me.
When is Comic-Con?
It's the end of July.
Okay.
You asked me when I thought they would get to 500 subscribers. Was my answer New York Comic-Con? Is that what I said? I'm pretty sure it was. The original question was, do you think they'll get there this year? I said yes, definitely. And I think I said by New York Comic-Con.
Which is usually fall, right?
Yeah, it's like September or something like that.
And they're right on the verge, correct?
Of
500.
They're approaching 460, I
Okay.
believe. I mean, that Infinity War boost was everything. So I can't wait to see how Solo works out.
Well, and obviously no spoilers about the movie, but a movie like that, obviously knowing that there's another one coming out next year, there's going to be a lot of speculation, a lot of discussion. A place like, depending on, so I foresee Solo being a pop, but nowhere near the pop of what Infinity War was, because I don't know how much post conversation you can have outside of like a celebratory thing, or if it's not good, just wanting to hear people's like negative opinions on it. But we're not going to be speculating on what's going to happen in episode 9 based off of what Solo does. So I think it's interesting how a lot of that is dependent on what is actually inside of the movie.
Unless an absurd fan theory says that Kira is Rey's mom.
Yeah.
And so that kind of video might happen. By the way, when it comes to the 500 subscribers, there are so many factors that we can't even consider yet. We don't know what the hell Fernandez is doing in Singapore, but whatever it is, it might eventually factor into the success of this YouTube channel. So when I project New York Comic Con, there could be a million things that happen from now until September that give them every reason in the world to surpass 500K.
Or
easily.
what happens at Comic-Con. Sometimes,
right.
I don't know what their coverage is going to be of Comic-Con. We've always said, even...
They always go, like, have to go. I think I remember them referencing getting tickets a few weeks back.
Right.
Because they were talking about how stressful and difficult it is. I think they threw that out a few weeks back. So I think they are.
Yeah, and I mean, doing those trailer reactions or trailers that we don't even get to see, getting the sort of secondhand version of the hype around certain things, that stuff is critical, I think, for the channel.
Definitely. I want to do something fun real quick because I was thinking about that guy's tweet.
We may have to take a break.
I was hoping... You want to take a break?
We may have to, but go ahead.
Okay. I was just thinking about that guy's question, like, why are they doing this? So I thought, wouldn't it be great if one of these videos was one of Collider's, like, highest earners? Because I don't know what that number would be. I think the Schmodown, the highest I've ever seen that I remember, is like between 200 and 400K.
Right.
And that seems like a Schmodown type thing. So I decided to go to Collider's most popular videos. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hilarious.
It's a lot of trailers.
So the number one highest viewed video on Collider was an official trailer for The Hobbit that has 26 million views, and it's crazy.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong when you go through this. Collider proper videos that we all know and love now,
right,
is the highest one. It is Star Wars Force Awakens trailer reaction.
No, you're close.
It is a Star Wars Force Awakens. It's a Jedi Council episode.
No, you're close.
What is it?
You're close. Early
trailer
Jedi
breakdown.
Early Jedi Council.
Right.
Is like the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was 2 years ago. One of the earliest Jedi Councils. The logo was green and not that brown.
Right.
First look at Luke
Is
Skywalker.
it brown or is
and
it
Force.
bronze?
Bronze. Okay. There's a gradient to it. It was a Jedi Council with it was nearly 3.5 million views.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
How long is the video?
It's an hour 37.
Crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Insane.
And then the Collider proper, that Blade Runner short film that they put out 8 months ago, has almost 1 million views.
Right.
And that's the most recent current day Collider thing. And then it's Force Awakens spoiler review with nearly 750,000. Collider, damn it, Josh McCouga doing VR for it, and the cast watching him has like 650.
Yeah.
It's Last Jedi spoiler review is their most recent video to be included in this with just over 600,000 views. That's crazy. Also a show that was an hour and 37 minutes long.
This is what I did that day when I wanted to randomly watch old Jedi Council episodes where they were predicting things that were going to happen in the movies, and it was hilarious.
Sorry, I'm going to stop this because I know it's long-winded, but a Snoke Theory video, their Captain America Civil War commentary had over 500,000 views. It's if anybody has the time, go look in their video library and click on most popular. It's pretty fun, and you can keep loading more, and it's pretty fun. But anyway, do you want to go on and take a break?
Let's take a break.
Quick? All right, we'll take a break, and here's a plug for Sight and Sound. Now, we all have our favorite Collider shows and personalities, but what happens when they can't be there for us? Maybe you're itching for some musical content or looking for someone discussing Legion. Look no further than Sight and Sound. Sight and Sound is mine and Jay's bread and butter. It's what we do outside of Collider Afterthoughts. Whether it's video content or podcast content, we have got you covered. In the description of this very episode of Afterthoughts are the proper links to get you where you need to go. If you want more of a laid-back general discussion on the week that was in pop culture, Sight and Sound will deliver that to you. Subscribe to the Sight and Sound podcast feed and YouTube channel now and see what we're all about. Thank you. Now back to the show. All right, we're back.
Hey, wait a second. If you're listening to this on a Saturday, I want to wish a happy Cinco de Mayo to all of our Mexican listeners. Go ahead.
Let's do some criticizing.
Oh, you just mean let's do the show that we do?
One of the most pitiful Collider...
All you do is talk shit.
One of the most pitiful Collider reveals that I've seen in a while is Collider Games.
Okay.
So we had already recorded last week. So we weren't able to talk about it. It was announced last week, and I saw it by accident, a post that Christian made in the Schmoville Facebook group.
Okay.
And I thought it was so strange that that's how it happened, because I saw the words Collider Games, and I was like, oh shit, this is it. And I go to it, and I guess one argument against what I just said is that the channel already has 46,000 subscribers.
Right.
I don't know exactly how that happened. I don't know if that could happen just based on that Schmoville post, so I might have missed another announcement.
I think that's why it was done the way that it was just like, hey, here's this thing, go subscribe to it.
Maybe.
Help us out.
But I was totally underwhelmed by it because there wasn't any word on it. Like, it was like, this exists, but there was not a plan that was previewed. There was not anything on how it was going to work. There wasn't like, I don't know if Fernandez is going to be the guy that comes out to announce this kind of stuff, like the new stuff for the company. He didn't really do that for the podcast network, but maybe Collider Games is bigger than that. So I just I expected.
We're hoping for him to do stuff like that on this show.
That's true.
Yeah.
He definitely could do that. I just expected way more when Collider announced their games platform. I just expected more than that. And maybe that was just the one thing that I saw, to be fair. Maybe that's just how I saw it, and I might have missed. But I don't think they posted to Instagram about it. I don't think there was an article on Collider.com about it. I mean, how did you find out about this?
Well, I found out about it because you told me, and then I saw the Schmoville post, but I equated this off air as how we've known that an Obi-Wan movie is supposed to apparently be in some form of production, but it's never been officially announced. That's sort of how I took it. Like, this has never been announced on Movie Talk, to my knowledge. It's never been really pushed. It's just a thing that was seriously like, hey, just to let you know, this exists. Go subscribe to it now if you want to.
It was just kind of like the next day, I remember thinking, oh yeah, Collider Games exists. There was an announcement yesterday, and I heard that whistling sound effect, that pew, and I was just kind of like, that classic cartoon Looney Tunes sound effect, or it's like, those toys that you had where you have that metal bar and it makes that sound. And
you get a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. I just heard that noise, and it was just kind of like, well, it happened, but have they even acknowledged it since that announcement? I don't
think so. I love the logo. I like that it's a variation on the existing one.
Looks like Halloween.
Love the title bar. In fact, I might love the title bar at the top.
You enjoy that?
More than the Collider proper title bar. That's just taste, just subjective thing. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to get from this, but to me, it's a marker in the sand of like, okay, Collider 3.0 first rollout was new graphics package. Second rollout was podcast network. Third rollout is going to be games. Like
I don't call this a rollout. Like,
well, it's not.
It still might be the next rollout.
That's what I'm saying. It's a flag in the sand. Is like, this is where we're going now.
Right, because I think
rollout was the wrong
their
word.
very first video was something for this Detroit game that I never really heard of. They posted this video to Collider Video as well. So it's a duplicate video and exists there if you want to see it. And then they posted those 2 It videos that Makuga did. So those are old.
So I'm learning something.
Just a little underwhelmed by the rollout.
I'm learning something. this whole thing that YouTube has now where it's like a YouTube feed that you can like post messages to your subscribers and
Right.
this and that, you can also link to other videos.
Yeah.
So Collider, I almost call them.
You're speaking about
Sublider.
your subscriber feed on your mobile app when you hit
Right.
when you hit subscribe to or subscribers or whatever, subscriptions I should say.
Almost works like
on
Instagram.
On your mobile app, yeah, you can scroll through not only the videos, but they've added messages, which I need to learn how to do.
Right, we both do. And apparently Collider probably does as well. So
Right.
the best way to do something like this would be like, it would be great to see a playthrough or whatever, something posted via the games feed, and then Collider go and message it, link to the video to all their 400.
They did that Twitch thing with Dorian and Roka. I was surprised they didn't upload it here as well. So I don't know if that was just a fun thing that they did. They haven't done it since, to my knowledge.
And they can do other special things on Twitch besides play games to get people to go there and check it out, whether it be a Q&A or whatever it is.
I don't know. I'm underwhelmed by these rollouts. But then again, maybe that was the plan, to just kind of sprinkle in. And
it might not be ready, yeah.
Well, I do want to use this to transition into our conversation with the podcast network, because you've sort of already referenced your overall take this week is that they are spread so thin.
Yeah.
So part of my concern comes from, with this whole Collider Games thing, is that like we're still talking about how they can tweak and modify the podcast network. So it's like, should they even be worried about Collider Games right now?
Yeah, I mean, so we had an off-air conversation about the podcast feed, sort of just continued on or piggybacked on the whole conversation we had last week of sort of some of our nitpicks and this and that. And after we had our conversation off-air, I pretty much just took the stance of saying that what Collider needs, in my opinion, to run some of these different arms, whether it be gaming or podcasting or whatever it's going to be, even if they were to go into like sports or something like that, that in order to make it work and function as best as it possibly can, they probably need to outfit an entire other crew for it, an entire other group of individuals under one roof this is the Collider Gaming crew, or this is the Collider Podcast crew. And yeah, you can share people across all of that for the betterment of the overall brand. But this whole conversation that I'm having, they're so aware of it. Like, it would be a huge disservice to Mark Fernandez to think that he's not thinking, my goal is to have all of these different branches of this brand. I mean, if we're thinking of it, surely he's thinking of it. So I didn't want to be too hard on them, but we are definitely pointing out that these certain, I'm not going to say flaws, but there are these things that can be better with the podcast feed and all this stuff.
So when you were referencing that off-air conversation, I think I started it with...
Start with promotion, right? The promotion in general.
Yeah. So that's one way that we felt Christian's absence this week was that... And
he is the best at promoting things.
Well, up until this week, he was the only person that was doing it.
Yes.
Ellis did it the first week, but Perry sort of and I noticed this, and I wanted to give her credit. She sort of took the reins when it came to promoting the podcast feed. It ended up being mainly for Mailbag, and her and Ellis were on. We'll talk about today's movie talk, but they talked about the movie talk feed, and they brought up Mailbag and movie talk, but not us. But overall, somebody was. And I've seen a lot of people, Body Slam continues to be more and more of a thing. And Christian tweeted out about Body Slam, one-on-one. And
we need to talk about Sinead being on one-on-one.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about one-on-one. But anyway, Aaron Turner, I just saw him post about it today in Schmoville, and Roka's on board. And so all of those guys are doing a lot better at promoting their stuff. I'm still under the impression, and we talked a little bit about it a couple weeks ago, because I was shocked that they already decided to make the decision to move the Schmodown over to the Collider feed, the Collider Factory feed, excuse me. And so the thing that I mentioned to you off air was, if they can admit that there are still tweaks still issues that they need to iron out with this podcast network, it's interesting to see that they're already making those decisions that, in my opinion, feel premature. Like, if you were to ask me my personal opinion, Ryan, what's your personal opinion of listening to the Schmodown as a podcast? I would say I'm not going to be the person that listens to the Schmodown on the podcast. I watch every Schmodown on video.
Right.
I like the idea of, like, you and I have talked about, like, game show type podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
We like that idea, and that's interesting to me. But my overall point with moving Schmodown over to the Collider Factory, and the reason why I was so shocked, is because we have all of these things that we're trying to sort out, yet they were already... I didn't feel like they gave it enough of a chance, because from week to week, we are still talking about their lack of promotion. So it was just very weird to me to see that they had already given up on that, and they seemed really, really self-conscious of the Schmodown podcast feed.
And of one-on-one. We've heard that.
Yes.
We've heard that talk. My point to all this, to this off-air conversation, was that, and I've used this in the content that I've created and that we've created too, is that in something's infancy, you shouldn't be looking at numbers for, honestly, 6 months. I think that's fair. Yes, Collider has this injection of promotion because they have these different avenues to promote things, which is why, you know, the podcast feeds debuted in the top 5, and why they've already gotten tens and 20s of thousands of plays on episodes and this and that. That's all great, but you still really can't look at things, and you definitely can't make knee-jerk emotional reactions and judge things how well they're doing in that short of a window. That's why I've always had the take. I don't think, with the exception of something like TV Talk, and maybe some like minor decisions that were made to cut like behind the scenes and this and that, certain things that have existed on the YouTube channel, that's why I've constantly said they have no business being canceled. Something like one of those history lesson videos or whatever.
But Jay, six months is an awful long time, and you might not even make it to 1 month. If your first video starts out at 10,000, next 5, next 20, 250, like it could just go down substantially, and then you just have no reason to continue with month 2.
There are examples where something can be so low, or the response can be so overwhelmingly negative that you cancel something.
The reason why Collider would never follow that 6-month rubric is because their time and resources are so limited that if they come up with an idea and it's not working, on to the next one. And that's why unfortunately, because I hate to see things go, but unfortunately it's just on to the next one. So I don't think...
It is different for video than podcasting.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
That's my point, is that I don't think the Schmodown podcast feed falls into that necessarily, because you primarily put that on video, given it's extremely popular on video. That might be...
Yes.
So that's... Part of me was thinking, if the Schmodown podcast was ever a thing, it would be something that might be helpful to people who couldn't get to their YouTube at a particular point, or for brand new listeners.
But the goal of putting it on a factory feed is to get it in front of more eyes.
Yes.
So there's that, but
that's why I wish we could have access to the numbers, because I'd really, really be curious, and my argument would crumble completely if it was just astronomical difference. But I guess part of me, I think it's just so weird with the Schmodown in particular, because it's like there's absolutely no cost turning that into a podcast.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So talking about Schmodown or Schmodown Rundown?
Schmodown.
Okay, yeah, I mean...
I haven't been talking about Rundown.
Right. The Schmodown itself is...
It's a copy and paste job.
But it's so difficult to expect people to do that, because it is such... They put so much time and effort into the visual component of what that is. I mean, I would go so far to say...
I'm not commenting on the video.
I know you're not. I'm saying in general, like, to look at the numbers of the Schmodown's audio. I love the idea, and I love the fact that they are doing that to accommodate for people that may want to listen. But I don't know personally my personal opinion, I don't think there should be any expectation of what that should be. In the same way that it should be of no reflection to us how our show, this show,
Right.
is doing when it's uploaded to YouTube, because there is no video component.
Right. I guess, like, yeah.
Although I do miss the comments. We don't get nearly as many comments
Right.
when people have to go to SK Plus.
If the Schmodown podcast gets way more plays on Collider Factory, then obviously that's great, and that's what's going to benefit it. But I literally have... So right now, Christian might be pulling his hair out because of this take, because he knows things that I don't. I have absolutely no way to gauge Collider Factory in general. Like, I have no clue what the numbers are on that. I have no idea how successful of a podcast feed that is.
The only thing we can pull from it is that it used to be the Collider podcast feed specifically, and it used to regularly stay in the top 100 TV and film podcasts, and we know what that takes. But it's still...
Yeah.
Those facts aside, we still have literally no idea.
To say, I have no idea about the carryover audience with that, because they might have, if they were subscribed to that feed for Movie Talk, they might have jumped ship because they were like, well, it's going elsewhere. Like, there's just no way. I have no comprehension about how that feed does on a weekly or daily basis.
Yeah.
I mean, it might completely throw people off. The titling is confusing still. So... that was this week's example, because we were talking about one-on-ones titling, just every episode being totally different. Both Schmodowns that went up last week were titled differently.
Yeah.
So it happened again this week.
Well,
so
it's even more crucial to do that on the factory feed for sure, just because it's such a mixed bag of stuff.
Yeah.
I think for me, Body Slam is fantastic, and
I hope it's doing great.
Absolutely. It's not for me particularly, but I'm excited about that.
Who are they marketing that to? Why?
I'm excited about the new shows that we've never seen before. The only examples that we have of that are one-on-one. Our show, sort of, even though it existed just somewhere else, and then Body Slam, but. Yeah, I'm excited for people to do more stuff. And again, I'll still beat the same drum. I need more people in that office to pick up a microphone and record some podcasts. ASAP.
So I think Christian...
If you need ideas, we've got them.
Christian is feeling a little self-conscious about one-on-one. He posted a poll in Schmoville. He asked the group members which episodes have they listened to, and he only left one individual option instead of all of them. So I couldn't say I've listened to all of these and not just the individual. So there's no way that poll is accurate, Christian. I hope you realize that. But I want Christian to... I think we talk about this every week. We want Christian to feel better about one-on-ones, because... we genuinely love the show, and I think it took Sinead's episode to get a lot more people on board.
For sure.
And I'm admitting my short-sightedness, because I was all about like bringing in other guests so that Clancy Brown feels Collider presence. And I want, if there are people of interest that come in, I was just less interested in Tom Dagnino Take Two. Actually, that's not the right example. I was less interested in
Beardo.
Yes. It's the best example.
Right.
I wasn't interested in the Harloff podcast Take Two, in terms of the guests.
Yeah.
Having Sinead on there was, again, admitting my short-sightedness, a great way to pull in existing subscribers, because I saw a ton of positive feedback for that show.
So I did something of particular interest to sort of gauge people's interest in the show. We have a very, very, very tight-knit niche group of individuals that listen to the things that we do, that I value very much so as some of the smartest listeners that we have and the most important listeners that we have. It is a small group, but it's great to get their take on things, who are also crossover Collider listeners and Schmoes listeners and viewers and this and that. And they've watched Collider stuff for a long time, and some things they've stuck around for, some things they haven't. But the one resounding thing across all of these individuals, and I'm telling you, these are very valuable listeners to the show, people that you want, they collectively agreed that not only do they love one-on-one, but it's a breath of fresh air on the Collider feed and the Collider in general, the Colliderverse, and that Christian is doing an absolutely fantastic job at doing this show. Not only did I listen to the Sinead episode, not only was I enamored with it, and I was super excited that it broke free of that 1 hour long runtime that we've seen from the other episodes, that it just felt so different. It felt like we were talking to somebody that was a part of this family, which is cool, but I also tested it. I tested it against somebody who shouldn't care about this at all. I was driving on a little mini road trip and decided to play this in my car with my girlfriend. She had every intention of listening to her own podcast. She sat there, took her headphones out, and had them in her hands to put them in. We made it the entire 45-minute drive, and she never put those headphones in.
It's great.
Because she was so engaged with this story.
It's great.
Or with this podcast. It's doing great. It's doing fine. I get it. Christian is a business guy. He's a numbers guy. He likes to look at this stuff. He's a promoter. But all I ask of you, man, is stop caring about that for a while at least.
Well, I mean, it's its most successful episode on YouTube, without a doubt,
Of
right?
course. Actually, I didn't look at the YouTube numbers for that episode.
It was 38,000 compared to Hayden's 19,000, compared to Clancy's 31,000, compared to Dane Fogler's 24,000. So Sinead to the Collider Video fan base is more important than Clancy Brown.
Of course.
And to your point, Christian was not the thing that either of us were concerned about.
Never.
He knows what he's doing. There's
a great
no question
interview
about it.
Yeah.
It was when Sinead tweeted she was afraid to go into the interview, was nervous about talking about her pregnancy for the first time. On the episode, it spoke to me. It was just a little bit, but she spoke about certain anxieties, which is something that would keep my headphones out,
Right.
Like Kayla. And
Kayla's my girlfriend. Did I mention that?
yeah, Sinead. I just think Sinead's own words about the show spoke volumes.
Right.
About her comfort level and how much someone like her values his show. So I'd be curious if it kind of became a replacement for the Josh McCouga show.
Well,
and had more guests like an Aaron Robinson or just people in this industry in general might have a place to come in. I think that would be interesting, and so I was happy to have that.
I'm not trying to throw jabs because I have no reason to throw jabs here, but we know that shows like this, interviewing people like Sinead, can be successful and deeply fascinating and interesting. Because not only because of the Harloff podcast, but also because of Beardo Show, right? I mean, even if Christian decided to just go on a tour of everybody that Beardo had on his show to do his version of that, to ask the questions that Beardo maybe didn't ask, those are great conversations, man. Like,
yeah.
I would love to get an update on Brett Sheridan. I would love for one-on-one to be the introduction of Brett Sheridan so that Brett Sheridan will be on Review Talk, which this is now my time to plug that every single person that is listening to this right now needs to get on their Twitter at Christian Harloff, at Mark Fernandez.
That's not
want
his Twitter handle.
Brett, yeah, figure out what his Twitter handle is. At these people, I must have Brett Sheridan on Review Talk ASAP. Because this needs to be a thing. If you want this to be the best thing, if you want Collider to break 1 million subscribers within the year, you will get Brett Sheridan on Review Talk. All right, back to what we were talking about.
Any other week I would agree, but I'm still looking at Frank Luca Tuerto. Is that how it... Oh my God, I was just not confident at all. I was right, but I didn't
Frank
have
his own
DACA.
podcast In the Closet with Frank Leguizamo?
Yeah, I would love that so much.
In the Closet? Is that PC? I don't know. Maybe don't call it that, but
It's
whatever.
okay. Sounds like an Arrested Development joke. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Good for you. Make no mistake about it. If he just had Bureau and those guys, I would listen every week.
Yeah.
But it was more of like how I would imagine this thing on Collider Video, and it always felt bigger than that. So make no mistake about it. If he just had Beardo on, well, if he just had anybody like that, I would listen to it.
Right.
But I always had bigger plans for them. So.
If we're talking about podcasts, just randomly throwing stuff out, I also want to give a shout out to the Wangers for having Mark Ellis on in place of Beardo.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You didn't tell me that.
Sorry, it was a fantastic episode, and it was great to see Mark, because we just had Mark as a guest on the podcast that he was on last week, but the Kevin Pollak show. But this was even more different. It felt like I was watching a mini live show, a mini Schmoesno live show.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
It was really, really entertaining. They did a fantastic job.
I'm excited to listen to it now.
I think that even, this is my own personal take, and he may get mad at me for saying this. I think Mark went into the show feeling like he was doing them a favor, but ended up having a fantastic time.
Right. Yeah.
In the same way he does a favor for
Sight and Sound.
Yeah.
The movie bucket list.
It's okay. He's a great guy.
Do you remember when we did that After Wanger episode of After Schmo?
And Christian was pissed at us.
I loved that.
An hour of wingers. Yeah.
That's the point.
Right.
It was great. We should do that again. I'm just joking. I want to
Even I didn't enjoy doing that episode.
Why?
I don't know. It felt filler. Let's go. Move forward.
Where's
Where's TV talk?
I was going to say, I want to transition. This is sort of the last broad topic I want to talk about with the podcast feed. I would like to see, again, it doesn't mean shit if the numbers aren't there for Collider Video. I would like to see Collider step up their TV coverage by or for the fall of 2018.
Right.
And
is there...
I'm being very specific when I say this. I am saying TV coverage. I'm not saying TV talk. What was that? Oh, was that Siri?
My Siri, yeah.
I'm saying TV coverage. I'm not saying TV talk. I'm not asking for TV talk to come back. It might come back. That's fine. But overall, and it can start a number of different ways. What's Siri doing?
I don't know. My Siri's talking.
They can't hear her, so this... Anyway, this could start a number of different ways. But this came up because you and I, every week, recap Legion. We've been doing it since last year. We were contracted to do it last year,
right.
But we love the show, thankfully, so we still do it on Sight and Sound.
If you Google the show, you see our faces.
I was going to say, we're like the number 6th result in Google Images.
How do you
it's
say
hilarious.
that number?
6th.
I thought you said 6th.
I had parcel tongue.
Oh, okay.
That's what that was.
Talking to snakes.
So anyway, Jay and I are big in the Legion landscape.
Are we?
And when we recapped Legion last night, I was talking about the temperature being low, the temperature being cold, and I realized I did not recall the people that I pay attention to, the Ringer, all of the people I'm subscribed to, like Screen Junkies, Collider, people like Jason Inman and Perry, all of those people who do these types of things, none of them are talking about Legion. And then I thought, well, maybe they don't do Legion recaps necessarily, but there's no reason at all why Schnepp shouldn't have a Legion portion on Collider Heroes.
Right.
So that's the smallest idea, right? Like, it's going to be hard to implement.
Especially when Jedi Council can go out of their way to do Rebel stuff.
Right. And so we had the superhero rundown or whatever in that first incarnation of TV Talk, and Schnepp's made it a point to say he's not on board with God. Okay. Maybe Legion isn't the best example, because I don't know if they're caught up. Schnepp is talking about Krypton. He's watching Krypton. He said he actually enjoyed it. Why don't they...
Watches Gotham, too.
He not... There's a lot of...
Talked about it before.
You don't listen to Heroes.
I mean...
He says that he only watched, like, the last 2 episodes, but he still doesn't watch it habitually.
But he was on it, though, right? When it started?
No.
Okay. Anyways, go ahead.
No,
Move forward.
So it'd be hard for Heroes to talk about season 8 of Arrow, because that's a show that he's not caught up on. But he's watching Krypton actively, from what I know, because he mentions it. It's like, why aren't they doing a Krypton recap? Why isn't that mandated?
Or at the bare minimum, reporting on news. I mean, in this TV landscape, I mean...
They could have at least done a Collider News video on the Arrested Development stuff.
You know what? Okay.
Because there was a lot of stuff in there.
So I think Let's talk about the TV that they do typically cover. Stranger Things,
Game of Thrones.
tentpole coverage, Game of Thrones. At one point, it was Walking Dead. Yeah, I mean, I think even if the answer is do more with less or spread too thin, let's try to do this as efficiently as possible. Even on a Saturday or Sunday, doing some sort of rundown video of TV that's on, or I'm not saying like a recap. I'm not saying do TV talk. That's not what I'm saying.
It could be a number of different ways. That's what I'm saying. It could start out as a segment inside of one of the shows they already do.
Some sort of representation on television.
I would like to see a gradual increase. And I know that every time I bring up TV recap shows, Christian cringes.
Christian should review Leftovers on Schmoes Know. At least.
What was this? Christian.
He randomly brought it up in the Sinead episode, didn't he? That he watched Leftovers?
I don't remember.
Or was it something else?
But he did mention to us that he just now finished Stranger Things too. So I don't know if Christian is the guy to do it.
Of course not.
Christian
hates TV.
That's true. He does. I want to see them get back to that. And again, going back to something that we made this point earlier, it's going to get really, really tough because of the summer movie season. That's why you don't have to start out with bringing TV talk back or start with a recap show, but maybe throw out a TV Collider news. Maybe actively do something for Heroes.
Does the .com cover TV?
Sure. They do it on the Collider.com podcast as well.
Yeah.
Actually, no, hold on. There was a separate Collider TV podcast. I can't remember who hosted it. I don't think it was Adam Chitwood. I can't remember who it was. I don't know if that's considered the same thing. I don't know if that's what was brought over to Collider Factory. I need to get back to you on that. But there was a Collider.com TV podcast.
Right.
And they do, of course, they cover TV on Collider.com.
Even at the bare minimum, even just doing a review of a season, like, okay, maybe you don't want to do something week to week, or you don't even want to do a week to week show on Collider about television.
Shame on them for not having a Westworld presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because we're just now finding out that Perry is apparently really into Westworld. Don't know why.
And Westworld, we don't like
trash,
it.
But
yeah, we don't like Westworld at all. But Westworld,
that's actually a dong take. I haven't watched.
People think I've
episode.
seen a lot of people put Westworld in their top shows of all time list, a prestige drama. Like, for whatever reason, whether we like it or not, Westworld is a big deal to a lot of people, and it's like, why were you not paying attention to this?
Yeah. Hey guys, if you want me to film an Atlanta season review for you guys and just send it there, I don't know, maybe you can
Collider East.
Yeah, just send me Collider East. That's right.
We're talking about Legion every week. Where's your Legion presence?
You can send me a Starbucks gift card or something for the Legion video we do and the Atlanta video we do.
Do you have any ideas for potential TV coverage coming up?
Coming up? I mean,
just like, what are you in agreement? What would you like to see them do? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think there's, when I say money, I don't mean actual dollars. I think there's quote unquote money on the being left on the table for TV coverage with Collider. I think it requires, just like we've already said, more infrastructure, more people at their disposal. Even somebody like a Dorian. I mean, I know Dorian's being utilized far more than I thought he was going to be, which is great, but I think you can get him involved even more. Potentially people behind the scenes, potentially Cody and Cop. We know that Cody and Copster are capable of doing stuff. They have something on Collider already. Doing something as small as that, but at the bare minimum, the very, very bare minimum, if by the end of the year we don't have some version of TV Talk, whether it's on a podcast feed, whether it's on whatever, at the very bare minimum, the YouTube channel needs to represent season reviews of TV shows, whether it be Marvel, Netflix. We're probably not going to get Stranger Things this year.
Arrested Development is next month.
Arrested Development, definitely Atlanta, definitely Legion. 13 Reasons Why season 2 is debuting this month. I mean, the list goes on.
That's another point. I'm glad you brought up the podcast network too, because Legion could have a recap show on the Collider Heroes podcast feed. Like, it just
And I if I'm being completely honest, I know that we do it, but recap shows specifically, I don't know.
Christian will agree that they work tremendously as podcasts.
I definitely think they work tremendously as podcasts, but I don't know if right now, especially like, I will say this. I don't think recap podcasts belong anywhere on Collider Factory. Nowhere near it. I think that's way too convoluted. I think a general TV show.
You don't think a Westworld recap show would work?
I do not.
You don't think a lot of those subscribers watch Westworld?
That's not what I'm saying. I think it's asking too much of a niche to just isolate a niche audience. I know that we do it, but that's nor here nor there. For the amount of eyes they have on their podcast feed, what you're asking your subscribers to do, I think it's too much. I think a general show could do the job, but launching a podcast feed for TV recap specifically might be the best option.
To my knowledge, while I'm thinking about it, Collider.com, they post articles, but there are avenues like Film School Rejects or even Consequence of Sound. They will post a story or a recap or whatever and supplement it. Film School Rejects supplements it by posting and embedding the podcast inside the article.
I did that this week.
Exactly. So what's
with the Kanye West thing?
I don't think Collider.com is doing that. They post Jedi Council. I get that. But I'm talking about when Collider.com does everything else. That's supplemental material. We work with the TV Time app. And if you don't know what that is, it's similar to Stardust, but it's a lot more than Stardust.
Specifically for television.
It's a message board. It might as well be its own social media as opposed to like video content like Stardust is.
Yeah.
And TV Time distributes our recaps. Collider.com could easily distribute recap shows inside their articles.
Should be distributing everything.
If
video
only
and
they were done.
So just to give a story this week with all this crazy Kanye West bullshit that's going on TMZ, he went to TMZ and TMZ had an article about his visit there, and something happened with their employee at TMZ.
It's a great video.
So I'm watching the video, reading the article. At the very bottom, TMZ posted this guy's podcast talking about it. That podcast exploded because of this news story, and I fucking listened to it.
Right.
And it was great. And so many more people had eyes on that podcast because TMZ worked like clockwork in how they promoted and incorporated the story.
And I think that's the stuff, like we're talking about earlier in the show, we were talking about the rollout of Collider games.
Right.
The stuff right now that we're talking about, I think that's the stuff that I think should happen next.
Yeah.
Not Collider games might be a far more complicated and intricate. Maybe it wasn't ready to be announced because there's a lot of work that's going to have to be going into that.
It's a different
because that's another primary channel.
Another audience.
Eventually. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think these kind of conversations are a lot more valuable because they're a lot more grounded in reality. Like this could actually start happening next week if they wanted it to.
Right. Let me ask you a question. This is sort of an out there question, but how much do you think the people who are making the decisions about how certain things are done, how much do you think they're looking at other platforms and how they're doing things and incorporate? Because
I don't know.
Think what you will about that. I hope people listening to this aren't like, well, they need to be original. Fuck that. They need to like, if you're building something from the ground up, you have to look at other places that are successful in doing stuff like this.
I don't know. Like, I don't know where the idea for Collider Factory came from. You and I talk about The Ringer and how they have an example of that Channel 33.
We do this constantly.
They might not have, like, Fernandez, for all I know, might be a huge Bill Simmons. Fuck, he might even know Bill Simmons, and he might subscribe to The Ringer and haven't already known that existed. Or maybe, I wouldn't believe it, but maybe they actually got that idea from us, you know?
Well, Christian gets a lot of influence from like the WWE Network for some of the aspirations he has for Schmodown. Howard Stern is a big thing for him, but there are things out there that exist in business model wise similar to what Collider is doing.
And to go back on a point, you talked about utilizing Dorian and Cobster, and you talked about the resources and this and that. I don't buy. If you have 2 or 3 people in the studio that are watching a show in prime time, I don't buy for a second that you can't turn on a camera for 10 minutes. Unless I saw their schedule and from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. there was not a minute to budge, then okay. I don't buy that. I don't see why they could not do 10 minutes of a video of them chatting, and it would just be. I've made that point a million times.
Well,
on
and again, I think it goes back to the spread too thin thing, and that's one thing I found very, very insightful and valuable from the conversation that we had with Christian this past weekend was him sort of telling us, just to let you know, we have this many people working on filming, editing, producing news stories, and I get it. That takes up a lot of time. But
that's why I was very specific with my words.
Right.
If you have two people in the office that happen to be watching the same show, I didn't mean to assign these people a show to watch outside of their own free will.
Do you feel like besides Frank, shout out to Frank, besides Frank,
Fuck yeah.
Do you think we've seen, well, nope. We have seen everybody that works at Collider now on screen except for Frank and Joey. Am I missing anybody?
Joey's on the top superhero stuff.
Okay.
Or Spielberg.
Okay, but that's very, very limited. I mean,
it's more than Frank, who was only in the town hall.
Right. But that's it, right? I'm not forgetting anybody.
I mean, unless they have...
We've even seen some people brought over from .com.
I mean, at least unless they have people that work in that office that we don't know about.
Right.
Is Cody in on the Spielberg stuff? I know Copster and Ace and RB3 are, but is Cody on those?
I don't know. And the only reason I'm bringing this up,
he's on Caption This, but
I'm sure people are thinking, well, why can't they bring in somebody else or bring in somebody freelance? I'm just trying to make a case for
bare minimum
here. Yeah, and I mean, people need to realize that investing in a full-time member, like that's. I'm not saying it's the last thing that you want to do, but you only want to pull that trigger once you absolutely have to. You're basically committing to spending whatever $50,000, $60,000 every single $80,000. I don't know, every single year when you're going in on somebody that's a full-time employee.
I bet that they have a Star Wars Resistance presence when that comes out. I think that's this fall.
I hope so.
But that's sort of my point. Not that Star Wars videos don't work. Like, they're definitely worth it.
It can be a podcast.
They do really well. It can also
And
be
a
a
video.
podcast and a video. But if a Star Wars cartoon warrants that, then Westworld warrants it. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's why I would like to, make the claim. I want to see them think about it and gear up for it this fall.
I think ultimately it's down to mindset, right? I know for a fact every single thing that we're talking about when it relates to Star Wars.
They've already thought about it.
Jedi Council. Well, no, I don't think they've already thought about it. I think Christian specifically has thought about it. We've heard this, right? Christian's talked about Rebels / whatever.
A lot of my ideas right now are recycled. I'm being repetitive.
And I think he's aware of it. I think there needs to be, maybe there has been, a sit down, a meeting, like somebody needs to promote this fact, like, guys, we really need you to start coming up with some ideas for some new stuff. It can't just be constantly doing the same thing that we've always done. Like, we want to present new ideas to our audience.
Right. So
maybe, you know what?
There are smaller versions of this, like I said, starting with a podcast that happens to be in an article.
Maybe that's why Fernandez had Frank listen to the show so that we could motivate him to start his own. What if right now he's standing up, he's like, you know what? I'm going to start a TV podcast.
I mean, we could do it for them, but we're the after show guys.
Afterthoughts.
I know, but I meant it wasn't always afterthoughts. Do you want to get into the main flagship shows and then we'll head out of here?
Yeah, for sure.
Already made fun of Jedi Council at Denny's.
We haven't seen it yet.
I saw an image.
Right.
An image that was tweeted. It looked pretty cool.
Mark haven't seen Mark.
I know.
Do you think Mark was like, I've got to be at that Denny's
live.
episode? Well, honestly.
Or because it's Denny's.
But honestly, I think because it's live, of course you go to Mark.
I was going to say.
Of course.
Or Ken.
But absolutely.
Ken obviously would have done just as well, but
absolutely. But
I think Ellis was more excited to do that.
And I think Mark and Christian riding high off the live Schmodown stuff, their chemistry live is palpable.
Palpatine.
It's palpatinable.
So obviously it's really cool. We can't really talk about it yet because we haven't seen it, but I'm looking forward to it.
When are we getting review talk?
I don't know. That
Didn't
was
they say
confusing
June?
too. Like,
Yeah.
Christian was like, "Yeah, we have to differentiate between review talk and spoiler talk," and I was like, "Well,
No one knew spoiler talk was a thing.
exactly.
No one knew that.
That's why everybody was confused,
Right.
Because we were like review talk, review
I
talk.
thought they
review
pulled
talk.
like a last-minute rebranding. You
I
know what?
wouldn't put it past them.
What if they heard the Brett idea and they were like, we have to completely restructure the show for Brett now. This is a great idea. Launch spoiler talk.
That's the only reason why After Smo was better than Afterthoughts is because we had Mama Sheridan's attention, but now we don't anymore.
Oh, I know. Yeah. What if we found out?
I miss her.
What if we found out she still listens? Would be the weirdest thing ever.
She would be the new Frank then. Sorry, Frank. She takes precedence. She has a Sight and Sound T-shirt.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
When I brought that whole thing up about, making Brett being on Collider a thing, he tweeted me and was like, so how's this going? And I was like, man, I literally just started. I'll give you an update
Brett
later.
said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
How's this going? Well,
Because he wants it to happen.
of course he does. He has dreams.
Yeah, he does. Anyway, how funny is it that Christian... I think... It's not often that we're credited for changes, but that droid change is hilarious to me.
Yeah, it was pretty.
It
It was pretty funny.
Yeah. I loved how you texted me because I think you had watched it earlier than I
Be
did.
honest, when I told you about it, did you think? How did you interpret Christian's reaction?
Do you remember my immediate response to you?
Was he pissed?
Was he pissed?
I actually liked that it was all in. Well, yeah, I liked that he thought it was funny and. It was weird. It was weird for him to be like, yeah, they're right. But
Because usually...
Ken's reaction was funny as well.
What was Ken's reaction?
He just laughed and thought it was ridiculous that they backtracked on it.
That's great.
He was like, okay, I guess we're just
but
taking
usually-
that away.
I don't... Usually...
Imagine the person who came up with that name was like, what the hell? What the fuck? I thought about this forever.
Unsubscribe. Subscribe.
Yeah.
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 That's usually just not... That's not how our interactions go. So... I was so appreciative that Christian was able to make light of that because usually usually when that stuff happens it's because he's given us shit or has a problem with something we said. It was honest. It was awesome for him to get how lighthearted we were being about it, but
Absolutely.
also even though my tone was like that name is terrible. But it was because I was just making fun of it. So it was great that he had that take, and I was really appreciative of it.
As much as I like, or I find our interactions stunning and fascinating and baffling all at the exact same time.
You do. I don't.
I also really enjoy just seeing them without my knowledge in general. Like tuning in and finding that Easter egg was just a really nice thing.
Right.
Like I would love to tune into Movie Talk one day and hear Perry just be like, well, even though those Afterthoughts guys don't care for this, I'm going to, that would be pretty hilarious.
Well, I think I would take that lighter than if Christian does that because Christian, he's just more sensitive about it. So, when Christian acts like that,
who would you cringe in your seat if you just heard them be like, I mean, those Afterthoughts guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Ellis or Riley, probably.
Really? Yeah.
Just because I have the most, since I've been a part of this community, I'm obviously that one of the most gratifying things about my entire experience here is the friendship that I've developed with Mark Ellis. Actually, then again, no, I would probably laugh because I know that at the end of it, we actually have a friendship. Whereas if anybody else does it, even Christian, it's completely different than if Ellis does it. So I take it back. Ellis, I would probably think is funnier if he had a problem.
When Beardo had a negative reaction to our show, it just made me laugh. It kind of annoyed me, but it made me laugh.
It laughed and it gave me permission to.
Wasn't it staged though?
Rip him.
It was. It was also kind of staged. So
yeah. I would rip Beardo in ways that I wouldn't necessarily rip Ellis.
Tell me about Heroes this week. What was your takeaway from Heroes?
So my takeaway from Heroes, I just had to laugh because Schnepp has absolutely no regard for the transitional graphics.
Right.
So when Cody plugs in the minor mutations and it's up there, it takes a little bit of time for those graphics to, play out.
The animation.
And so, so the animation, we can't even see the panel. We can't see the table. The animation is up for the minor mutations. And Snap has already pitched the story and has sent it to Robert Meyer Burnett. And it's hilarious because he's not thinking about how Collider does things now. And that's just funny to me. So I get a good laugh every time he does it.
Well, honestly, I think that's good that they sort of have that disregard because they're also thinking about two different audiences. They're not just thinking about the video audience. They're thinking about the audio as well. So that's a good thing, I think. I don't think there's a way to solve that. I don't think it needs to be solved. It's just a hilarious
It's
thing.
just funny to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just laugh. I just think it's funny because that's such a Schnepp thing to do. That's all I really got, really. I listened to one episode of Heroes I think I listened to as a podcast, and it was better this week. I was a little bit concerned because we talked about leveling audio.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the Infinity War spoiler review. No, maybe it was the preview for Infinity War that Coy Jane Drew was on. He was way louder than everybody else.
Christian was way louder on one-on-one.
And I couldn't listen to it as a podcast.
Not way louder. I'll tell you what the one-on-one audio issue was where, and you can fix this, but where Christian's voice is so much bassier.
Yeah.
To Sinead's, when every time he would come in, I would have to turn it down. That's a super minor technical thing that's easily solved with a bass reducer, but yeah.
Well, the difference too, the reason why that's better is because Christian, because of that show, is probably just asking questions and her
it's not a full
dialogue.
conversation. Yes.
Whereas it's a lot more even on
100%.
Heroes. And so I genuinely could not listen to Heroes as a podcast because Coy was so much louder. I tried to listen to it when I was working out. That's why I was listening to it. He was so much louder that if I turned him down, I couldn't hear Schnepp and those guys at all. So, but we talked about that last week.
Right.
Moving on to movie talk. To your point, the spoiler alert warning is bigger.
Is it?
Yeah. Is
that my doing? No, I'm just kidding.
It's a lot fatter. I think it is. I would bet that it is.
We have a lot of pull. Expect Brett on Review Talk ASAP.
What if Fernandez hated Brett?
If you like Michael Rappaport, Brett Sheridan, honestly, honest take, I'm big fan of Michael Rappaport. Big fan.
Play the clip again.
Big fan of Michael Rappaport.
That's lazy.
Brett Sheridan is just a better version of Michael Rappaport. In fact, I would say Michael Rappaport is just Diet Brett. You've been drinking Diet Coke your entire life until you've had a taste of Brett Sheridan.
You've had a RC Cola?
Yeah. You've been drinking
RC Cola.
Mountain Mist or whatever it is. Mountain Mist. You've been drinking decaf Starbucks.
You've been drinking Perrier as opposed to LaCroix.
Yeah.
Even though Perrier is more premium than LaCroix is.
Yeah. Brett is just better Rappaport.
Is that the first time we would ever be vocally against Mark Fernandez? Is if we ever found out he didn't like Brett Sheridan?
I mean,
I would like to think about that. What would cause us to vocally come out against Mark Fernandez? That'd be hilarious to consider.
I feel like Christian would have to go and have a talk with him and be like, so listen, man, these Afterthoughts guys, they're really big fans of this Brett guy. So why don't you just ease up on your Brett takes?
But I want nothing to do with him. Well,
you don't have to pay him. It's okay.
The fans
just put up with it.
The fans are rallying behind him. I don't know what to say. Mama Sheridan's calling.
Do you think Christian has ever had to have a conversation with Fernandez and be like, hey, do you think maybe there's any room to hire Beardo? Who? Who? What's a Beardo?
Oh man.
Never mind.
I think the situation was reversed.
The guy that interviews plants? The guy that does that show everybody else does?
Why are you screaming?
I don't know. I'm ready to go. Come on.
All right, yeah. The last point was that there were technical difficulties today on
Whatever
today's
that
Movie
means.
Talk. Yeah. Every now and then.
What if you found out that the technical difficulty was that Ellis slept in from his nap?
Why would he have a nap that early? They start at 9. He doesn't nap until after Movie Talk.
I mean, the definition of a nap is just sleeping, right? So you could really call it anything.
It's a midday sleep.
Not necessarily.
I think
you can take a nap at night.
The earliest a nap could start is 10 a.m. If you've maybe woke up at 6 a.m. to go to an early dentist appointment, you come back, take a nap at 10 a.m.
That's just your opinion.
The latest you would take a nap.
That's just your
5
opinion.
p.m.
I just disagree. So
10 to 5 p.m. is your napping window.
It's subjective.
I don't know what the technical difficulty was, because there are a lot of times when they don't have internet. But so I don't know if that means, because they still do a show, they just pre-record it. So I don't know if that means someone has a flash drive and they run the Starbucks and then upload it from Starbucks Wi-Fi. I would love.
I thought you were saying like
if they ever do that. Look, if that ever happens, put that on Collider's Instagram. Make a video, like have Frank do it.
Yeah.
Have Frank make a funny behind-the-scenes video, put it out on social media, showing what it's like when there are technical difficulties at Collider. That's what I want to see. I think that's fascinating.
I think Cody and Adam were on strike, and they had to resolve it very quickly.
That might be it. I was gonna say it could either be the internet. Ellis on air said it was absurd. He said they couldn't have a third panelist, whatever the hell that means.
Maybe the chair broke. They couldn't find a chair.
But they also didn't have the graphics. So there was only one camera. So that could be a number. They might have decided, because they only had 2 people, to exclude all that other stuff. It's the chicken or the egg. I don't know what came first. But so yeah, it could have been a number of things. It was also very, very short. It was 30 minutes, just Ellis and Perry talking about movies.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of. Didn't they do like didn't Campia used to do like every now and then he'd just do like a movie talk from his bedroom or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of what it reminded me of, but just because it was just that static camera. I'm great with it. That back in the day, like in doom and gloom era, if Collider was in financial scrutiny, that would have been my answer for, okay, we're firing everybody. So we're just going to do movie talk like this now.
Right. That's pretty much it. That's all I've got on my rundown.
You're saying that's pretty much it, like we didn't just do a 2-hour podcast.
I was going to say, we pulled 100 minutes. It was pretty good. We had a lot of great takes, a lot of great stuff in that episode, Jay.
Where can they hear you ramble on about other nonsense on the internet?
You can hear me talking about Legion and doing outdated movie reviews on everything Sight and Sound. It's a YouTube channel. It's a podcast feed. We just did. Look, there were a lot of people in the Schmoville Facebook group talking about missing Legion coverage. We do that show every week. You can find it on everything Sight and Sound. The links to everything are in this description below. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell, and we can talk about fake nails.
Actually, don't have a problem with fake nails, but you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JWilliams, J to the A, the Y to the E. It's the same for both. On our YouTube channel, we've got a ton of stuff. I'm reviewing albums. Check out our podcast feed, link in the description below. I do a music show every single Friday there, talking about all the new releases. It's kind of a headache, but I do it anyways. And if you want to support Ryan and myself, there are plenty of ways to do that. What? What'd you say?
No, go ahead.
There are plenty of ways to support us, but you can always pick up some of our merchandise. Our Sight and Sound merchandise, sightsoundpod.com. It's a TeePublic store if you're familiar with the Schmo stuff. It's all the same stuff except for the graphics better. We got some cool T-shirts over there.
Jay, that's an off-air take.
So we have a brand new T-shirt that we're launching very, very soon that I think everybody, maybe not everybody, but I think a lot of people will enjoy. It's a lot of fun. It's in celebration of a few things going on right now. Maybe Solo, maybe some other TV stuff. Look out for it, sightsoundpod.com. Support ya boys. You're going to make the show better while you're doing it. And you're going to buy me Starbucks.
I was trying to interject with, because you said you didn't have a problem with fake nails, I was going to interject with the joke, you're the one with the girlfriend. Like a way to put myself down. It was going to be a self-deprecating joke.
Okay. Keep working on that one.
Thanks, guys. We will see you next week. Peace out.
Bye-bye.